I want to start by maybe a situation some of you have lived through and how that's changing in our AI world. And it might be 5 p.m. on a Friday and you want to sneak out early. It might be a beautiful day like this with the sun shining. You might get a customer that calls you, the dreaded phone buzz, and you start to think, who's calling me at this horrid time of the day? And you get a query, and it's a very complex query. It might be a pricing query, it might be an HR query, it might be a new proposal that's required. It's something that just makes your world sink. This was the world pre-AI, and these kinds of situations happen all the time. And what you start to do is something that's quite manual. You're going through spreadsheets that lots of people have touched. You're trying to dig up market intelligence. You're trying to, pull stuff out of databases. And all the time, this data and this kind of work, it's low value. And you've got this sort of sinking feeling that you're not confident about it because it's changing, it's dynamic, there's humans involved. It's not precise, and it's kind of low value work. So if you've lived through that experience, what we're finding now, and some of you might do this, is that whole world is completely changing. And people now, through the power of AI, are getting to a stage in their organizations where they can speak in their natural language, connected to all their data sources, and pose specific questions to the AI, and it's completely transformed the way that they live. So now they can be at the pub at 5 p.m. Now they can be more confident in what's being produced because they know that AIs are adaptive, they understand your objectives, they're pulling out the right data, and they can start to do a lot of that low value work so that you can focus on the strategy. You can focus on understanding what's coming out of AI and present that in a way that's really effective. And some of you might have experience with that. So I might just do a quick pulse check if that's okay. If you could grab your phones and scan one of these magic QR codes that we know from COVID. It'll help me ground the conversation because I'm really interested in where everyone is on their AI journey. And I'll get the results here in real time. I did this in Sydney 2 days ago, and we'll see how you fare against them. Don't worry, it's completely anonymous. It's not a quiz. It's not, unless you write your name in big capital letters in the responses, or you can't, it's multiple choice. Okay. Excellent. That was quick. Everyone's operating at AI speed almost. So where would everyone think that people are? Very early on. Yeah. Just a few more responses coming in now. I can share these after, but it's the same as Sydney, right? So just to gauge where your peers are in the room, you've got 22 that are experimenting personally, 23 now, and 19 that are actually doing pilots in their business, which sort of echoes what I'm seeing in the industry, is that the majority of AI work going on is it goes from personal to these pilots, and they can do pilots very quickly, and then the next stage is a bit more of a jump as to how do you build this into organizational DNA. So you've got 23 experimenting, 19 in pilot case studies, and 3 scaling across the organization, which is pretty cool. We didn't see that. So thanks for the quick feedback. I'll be able to anchor my conversation around that. And I think that it still shows it's very early in the AI space, mostly pilots and personal adoption. So I think for everyone in this room, you're hearing a lot about AI today, but personally it represents a really good opportunity to get back and sort of shape this in your organization. So just a little quick introduction as to who I am. So I help organizations move from kind of gut feel to exploring a data-driven advantage. I've been doing this for 15 plus years. I've started as an engineer, worked across the life cycle. I first started looking at machine learning many years ago, which was pre-generative AI. And what that was really reserved for was massive companies, Facebook, the banks of the world. They're very specialized, very specific type of AI, maybe for fraud to make decisions, and very expensive. And now with the coming of GPT-5, I work all day helping organizations try and organize themselves and think about AI and have the right mindset around AI to benefit from this new revolution. So far from these very specific machine learning models, AI is now completely democratized and you can get started quite quickly. And I'm going to give you some blueprints as to how to do that. First, I think the demo is next. No, one more slide. So AI is not just another tool, and I'll do a demo after this that's going to show you a bit of flavor of what's called agentic AI. Some people think of AI as like a tool, a calculator, something you can quickly input something into and get the response, and it's maybe faster and more effective. But what we're seeing now with AI and what you just heard about before is this sort of agentic AI type of concept. And you probably might have heard of it if you open up LinkedIn or anything. It's sort of the buzzword at the moment. But what that really means is quite powerful. It means that it's not just another tool. It can actually uncover new insights that you hadn't thought of before. And that can be quite strategic and break down your intent into different components. It can make trade-off decisions, and it will come back and surface those insights to you autonomously, working through what it guesses is your objective. And there's a lot of complexity to that, but very simply, that's how it works. So in the next demo, there's a tool called GenSpark there's a couple of these consumer tools that sort of explore agentic AI, and ChatGPT is introducing it, but I'm going to give you a small demo about the power and walk you through some of the power of agentic. So it's actually not ChatGPT 5. That was a so this is GenSpark here. They call it GenSpark Super Agent, and what I'm looking for here in this concept is trying to look at semiconductor supply chain risk. So you might have a board meeting that's coming up. You might need to understand the risk of semiconductors and what that represents to the organization. So you start off with a simple prompt, and what GenSpark is going to do is it's starting to pick what tools it needs to complete your request. So it's getting your objective, and this is not just a Google search, it's using specific what's called MCP to actually find specialized databases and sources that it thinks will be great. And I just showed you some of the results that are coming back. So you can see this is in real, I haven't sped this up or anything. It's coming up with a list of supply chain risks and the main vendors there. And that's through taking what it thinks is your intention, which is sometimes not 100% right. And it's very quickly spat out that. You can do it in a spreadsheet. You can log into existing data sources and do this in a browser. Boards love visualizations as well. So I'm going to ask for a visualization of that. Now, this will use another tool. So it's going to pick a visualization tool. And that, if you think about handing that off to maybe you can think about it as your agentic co-workers. So it might be the equivalent of a, consultant that goes off and understands based on what your request is, what kind of visualization you would need. I'll come back to the visualization after this. The last thing I'm going to do really quickly is build an infographic. This is where, and Kath, you kind of alluded to this, the multimodal thing comes in. A lot of you might know this, but AI isn't just about text, it's about sound. You can start, people are building, there was an AI Beatles song that just was released recently. You can do images, you can do any sort of speech, any sort of multimodal type of work beyond text. So what I'm doing here is I'm trying to pull together a supply chain risk dashboard infographic. It's still very experimental. Some of it's better than gets better results than others. Google just released this image tool called Nano Banana. I thought it was a cool name. That's the semiconductor supply risk scores that we were looking at before. So it's built that out pretty quickly. And then let's see how our image is going. It's a little bit slower. The important thing to recognize here is that you didn't have to input what type of image, how you wanted to present it, what tool to use. It'll go and just spin it up quickly. Now the dashboard's not too bad. You might not give it to a board, but as a first pass, it's all right. And then the final thing I'm going to do here is, because I've integrated this with various other systems, so you can integrate this to your CRM, to Salesforce, to Twitter. There's a Twitter into X now it's called. I'm just going to draft an email to our CPO in here because I've integrated with Outlook, and it's going to generate that supply chain risk alert. This is pretty cool. So here it spits together a stylized sort of email. You can edit the email. It's provided the rationale for the email. It will actually guide you through its thinking as well. So it's a reasoning model. So if you want to come back and tweak it, you can see where it tripped up in its thinking, for example, which is pretty powerful. And then I'll send it, and that's sent. So this is not an enterprise tool, and it's probably not going to be connected to all your in-depth pricing information. I wouldn't put anything sensitive into it. But as a consumer-grade type of interesting technology, this is the world that we're going into. And this is very early days. We're seeing things just flying through. So you can imagine about how these AI co-workers you might have for a financial organization. We have a qualitative analyst agent that goes and, based on some rules that we give it and some documentation, it could go and find opportunities that they might want to invest in. You've got a risk agent, and they can all sort of work together. And at the final end, you have a communications agent that puts it into the right format specific to maybe a client and with the right letterhead, and puts it all together and can send it off in the right format with the right tone of voice. So this is the world of agentic AI that we're moving into. The question is, that was a consumer-grade tool. A lot of people say, well, does it scale? Can you use this as a real enterprise with secure data, with millions of customers and all that kind of stuff? And the answer is what you've heard today and through lots of different case studies and the clients that we work with is absolutely yes. The first time I really saw the scale of this was with what Klarna did, the Swedish fintech. What's interesting about these case studies is it increases efficiency, but it also drives better customer experience and is better for growth as well. So you get, with a lot of automation type of structures, you either get the operational efficiency, your growth remains the same. In this kind of adaptable technologies, you get both sides of the coin, which is really powerful. And Klarna had some really complex customer service responses and queries they were getting, and they had a huge amount of human agents that were responding to those complex queries. And what they did is, once they introduced this agentic AI, they had the equivalent of AI agents that would replacing or augmenting the equivalent of about 700 customer service agents. So customers were happy, they were getting a lot of feedback really quickly, and Klarna were happy because they had their operational efficiency. So back in your world, we work with a lot of organizations that start to think, what does the firm of the future look like? If you take that world that I just presented, and customers are doing this, and we work with them day in, day out, that really try and get their heads around, if I had this team of AI agents, what would I do? It's a little bit scary, but I think it's also exciting, and there's a lot of opportunity to it. So if you could have agents that were relatively cheap, I mean, compared to a PhD level, kind of hiring a PhD, you've got these people on tap, agents on tap. What would you do with them? So within your future org chart, you can sort of write. There's no rule books, and you can sort of be quite open into how you define these. And it all matters what is effective in your organization and within your workflows. So you might have something like a contract analyzer, really complex legal terms, and I know the platform we were just talking about has a lot of that. You might have rebate optimization, you might have margin calculators, market intelligent analysts running 24/7, finding opportunities, looking at supplier pricing as it changes. Think about the power or the employees that you would have to do that. You know, when we work with the financial services provider I talked about before that runs financial analysts, they had 4 analysts on this one desk, and they were just exhausted. You've got to keep up with the news 24/7. You've got Bloomberg, you've got Chinese markets. They just couldn't get through the data quickly enough and the news quickly enough. And then every single analyst had a different way of analyzing the data, and the portfolio managers were sort of not 100% sure in the confidence. And now they have their agents running 24/7 doing this type of thing, looking at the markets and applying their strategy to that. And their lives have become a lot easier, and they've got more strategic. So with a lot of our organization, we see a move towards a lot flatter structure, a lot more strategic type thinking, and a move towards adoption of AI skills. So where your role might be, another example is we work with HR is a really good use case for these types of things. Rather than being an HR, having lots of HR admins or an HR manager, there's HR AI operators now. And how you can think of it is this HR AI operator has a bunch of agents that sort of surround them, and they can perform these types of roles for them on demand, and that are connected to the right data sources. It's been tweaked, it's been optimized for a specific use case, and that can repeatably and autonomously run these activities for them. So it's like having a high-powered consultant on tap with access to your data. It's very, very powerful. It needs to be done correctly. It needs to be done with safety in mind, but this is the opportunity that you can get to. So before, if you take it back to the scenario at the start, before you're gonna get requests from clients, it's gonna take you a long time. You get that sinking feeling, you think, I'm gonna be rushing around and I don't even know if the answer's gonna be right. The future looks very good for you. So AI can really do a lot of the heavy lifting. It can do a lot of that repeatable work that you don't need to have eyes on. And you can be what's called the human in the loop that steers it. And you can start to get more strategic and maybe even rediscover why you got into this role in the first place. Sometimes the things that excite you and the things that drew you in, once you get into the corporate world, we all know you get bogged down in some of these things that aren't such high value. So what we find is people get happier that they can lean into this AI technology and tooling, and they can get back to doing that stuff that they're good at and that they want to do. Before we get too excited, I'm going to be completely honest. It's very early days. There's a lot of excitement. A lot of these things fail. There was a recent study that just came out from the MIT Tech Review. It was the latest study on success. A lot of it failed. It's like any technology, right? But particularly with AI, it's a huge amount of excitement and a lot of people just getting involved without a real clear plan as to what they should be doing, why they should be doing it, and doing it safely. So you see a lot of these. I was just reading, KFC wanted all their drive-thrus to be AI voice activated, and then that wasn't trained properly and started misbehaving, and they pulled it straight away. So there's a lot of this stop and start with any new technology, but particularly AI. A lot of organizations that we work with, they try and do everything all at once. If you had a spreadsheet of the types of initiatives that AI is doing, I can see some smiles. It's too big. It's way too big. And you've got a lot of experiments with not much value, and then you've got this big invoice that comes from Anthropic or ChatGPT. The ownership of AI, it's sort of a bit nebulous. Who owns it? Who doesn't own it? Who has the decision-making rights for it? What tools you need to use? All that kind of stuff. Capability, probably everyone in this room, and even myself included a lot of time, thinks, and I do this full time, I wish I had more time to invest in these technologies and learn about them and figure out what they do. So it's moving so fast, there's these capability gaps and there's a lack of confidence, and sometimes these capability gaps can be quite challenging. And then the last one is this AI, sometimes we put too much confidence in them. So we need to be a little bit skeptical. We need to use these things responsibly. We need to make sure we're using them securely, and we sort of work alongside them in the right way and don't expect that they behave like our typical software behaves now. Software now is very reliable. It's algorithmic, it's like a recipe, and you get the repeatable answer. AI, it's maturing, but at the moment, you need to think about what safety means in the space. If I could summarize what I would do or what I would give to my clients, which I do a lot, is a lot of those challenges that we saw before, if you could just focus on a strategy that really hones into the value of what you're picking with AI, where you want to focus, why you want to focus, how you're going to deal with that responsibly, how you're going to upskill and build capability with teams, how are you going to relook at roles and make sure this is part of your organizational operating system. If you do all of that, there's actually a lot to do. But if you do it in one small area, it's really good and it can succeed. Because you've got that big focus on it, you can learn from what works and you can iterate on it. Even OpenAI talks about this concept of continuous deployment. Because a lot of the rule books don't exist, you've got to deploy, you've got to learn, and you've got to keep iterating until you get to somewhere that you like. So focus on one thing, make sure it's impactful, but you don't need to make it world-changing. It just needs to be something that's going to add a lot of value. And there's usually when we go into organizations, they're sort of jumping out of their chair to tell you the first things, preparing certain emails or running through various processes that they don't think adds value. You've probably got some of those in your head right now. So if you start to think, well, how can I get started? Like I mentioned at the start, you don't need a huge amount of investment. You don't need to hire 20 data scientists from Harvard to dip your toe in and to really get some value. It's all democratized. So within 90 days, you could do something that's quite game-changing. So within day 30, you could have something where there's quite a reliable AI assistant that solves a problem reliably for you. After that, you could expand that to your team, benefit from the collective intelligence of your team, share it and take feedback and evolve it so that the whole team is benefiting from one of these areas that you're looking at. And after 90 days, you might be in the concept at the stage where you can iterate on a new concept, on a new opportunity, scale the existing one wider to your organization that if they could benefit from it, and then start approaching another hypothesis around where you think AI can deliver value. And if you start spinning this kind of flywheel, you can get quite far quite quickly, and you see that organization change along with it. So you start seeing habits change, behaviors change, you get flatter, you're more strategic, and the changes will happen over time. This was mentioned in the last speech, and I 100% agree. It's not a matter of if this is going to happen, it's when and how this is going to happen. Based on what I've told you, it probably seems like a no-brainer. Yeah, who wouldn't want to do this? I think the devil's going to be in the detail as to what the focus areas are and how to do this safely and reliably and at what pace, but it's going to happen, right? So my sort of recommendation would be to jump in as soon as you can and start getting experience in it and start trying to shape what this looks like in your life through your skills and your exposure, but also within your teams and your organization. It's going to be very hard if a competitor is doing some of these things that we talked about to catch up with them. If you have an always-on market intelligence AI team that's constantly feeding their human team with this data and they're coming to meetings prepared, it's just such a big advantage. So jump in. Personally, you could get started this week. Probably don't put anything confidential into one of the public models and do it with care. But you can start experimenting very early on, take a couple of scenarios, whether it be competitive research, analyze pricing, share the results with your colleagues, start building up a bit of a reflexive mindset about how could AI solve this as opposed to my normal processes. And even better, think about this is a question that I pose a lot, if I had an AI native competitor that was starting tomorrow, which we are seeing a lot of these, what would they do? How would they structure their organizations? How would they think about this what would their org structure look like? What would their process and workflows look like? What would their KPIs be? All of these kinds of questions that you can start to think about. We call it the, envisioning the firm of the future. Start to think about these things and socialize them and start to build capability in it. And as I mentioned before, once you get there, the advantage is amazing. So if you had these tools at your disposal and it was well configured, there'd be opportunities there, you could optimize deals in real time. The level of benefits are really endless. So I know there is a lot of fear about AI, and a lot of if the research is correct and it resembles who's in this room, which I suppose it does, there's some fear about what does AI mean for me, and is it going to take my job? And philosophically, I think a lot about my kids and what are they going to study and all this kind of stuff. And I think those fears and challenges are very real, and everyone feels them. You go into a meeting with a board or with an executive team, and within 10 minutes you're talking about philosophy and education and all. I've never seen it before, but it's all real. But I think one of the things that we can do is just dive into it and start getting experience and exposure with these tools. I think that there's a big opportunity to shape how AI works in your life, in your organization's life, in your family's life. And the only way you can really do that is by jumping in and starting to work with the technology, the tools, and starting to look at what's out there. So I hope that I've given you a little bit of confidence, and maybe on, tomorrow you start to look at these things in more detail. And I think it would be good if you did. So thank you for your time, and I'll see you soon.
Hey Dan, before you go,
yes.
We've got a little bit of time, so we might see if there's any questions. Does anybody have any questions while we've got a real life AI nerd on stage? That's not going to happen.
I am not AI, but
you are a real person.
About AI.
You're a real boy.
Yeah, okay. I'm real.
Sorry, you keep talking about, like it was brought up, safety, but around the AI, I'm kind of concerned about the safety and the ethics, because everyone is jumping into it quite quickly, and it's all great and well. But the thing is that it's just a pile of information that we're using our moral compass, and that's probably where my concern is. So what structures, safety concerns do you have yourself?
So it's really interesting, and there are huge amounts of safety concerns. So GPT is a generative pre-trained model. It was trained on the internet. So its brain is configured based on who's using the internet, which is, interestingly, some research came out that said that it resembles Australians, these AI models, for some reason, and New Zealanders.
Good.
Yeah.
We're very smart.
Yeah. So you're getting, so all these other countries and these other, even there's a gender bias, there's a geographical bias. Yeah, it's been trained on the knowledge that we've given it, right? So you've got, what you need to do is, it depends on obviously the situation that you're in, but these are very real things that you need to factor in when you're using the AI, and you need to be conscious of. You can technically address some of those issues. You can fine-tune models. You can provide additional context. You can train people on these things. There's a lot of concerns, right? Like hallucinations. Everyone knows what these are. It's just the overconfidence of the AI to respond in whatever way, and it seems very, very plausible. We were working with a law firm, I won't mention, but their partners sending case emails to judges with case law that doesn't exist. Because it's just such a big blunder. So yeah, hallucinations, basic understanding and the reliability are all concerns. They're being worked through, but again, it's why you need a strategy, and you just need to think about these things. I could go on, there's a lot, I don't want to scare anyone. But yeah, it's very powerful.
Got another question over here.
If I'm brand new to AI, what's the 3 things I should have in my toolkit?
In your toolkit, I think you just need to know this concept of prompting, which is how to ask the right questions to AI. I think that's step 1. Step 2, I think you need to start to look at what kind of information you strategically share with AI. And the third one, I would say you need to be conscious about your providing information to it about you to contextualize a lot of that information. So in terms of the tool and how you do that, I would start to experiment with public models. I wouldn't put anything too sensitive in it. But that's where my head would be at in getting started. I would read about it and I would just sort of go on the journey there.
Any other questions from anyone? Oh.
What that journey looks like then from first of all these public models
Yes.
into the next stage, which is something integrated into a business that provides support. What's that kind of look like?
Yeah, so a lot of it starts off with individuals within the organization. So you can purchase an enterprise license for some of these models and they're more safe and secure and you just get better support around them. You don't necessarily need to do that, but I just think it gives people a lot more of an understanding around AI. It's interesting that what we've seen is that benefit doesn't really roll up to the organization. So if I gave everyone unlimited ChatGPT access, would it would make you write emails faster, it would summarize stuff, but it doesn't kind of hit any organizational KPIs. What we see is that next step around when you embed it into existing workflows or into what they call vertical use cases. So, for a business or for a process, you remap that process in an AI native way and you use different technologies with AI in the mix there that can do certain powerful things. That's sort of what that journey looks like. And that goes through a piloting phase, like an MVP phase where you test it with real users. We like to get as close to the end users as possible to sort of get that fast feedback. And then once that's done, you can make sure it's safe, secure, and pilot it from there. That's for a specific use case. There's a lot of foundations as well that sort of need to be in place. There's the data needs to be there. You need to get your safety, security, and compliance, as we just spoke about, kind of locked down. You need to know the metrics that you're tracking and how to evaluate the effectiveness of it. There's a couple of these types of foundations, but once you're up and running, you can, with those foundations, you can go and iterate from, pilot, MVP, live product, scaling, and just repeat. Yeah.
Any other questions before we wrap up this session? Cool. All right. Well, thank you so much, Dan. You're going to stick around for lunch and people can ask you more curly questions.
Yeah.
Fantastic. And just picking up on one of the things that Dan said, which was pick one thing. And I got the same advice 3 years ago from Propel, and it was pick one thing, Kath, in marketing. You can start to think about how I can change that for you. And the example I'll give you is video production, right? So video production and marketing, we love a video. Everybody loves video, right? But video production is very expensive and it's also very time consuming. And so the guys introduced us to this tool and it's called Hey Gen. And we produce this blog and it's called vlog. It's called Power to the Pricing People, and it's a bi-weekly news roundup of all the things that are happening in the world of pricing. And we pour over hundreds of different articles that happen every week in the world of pricing and rebates. We summarize them, and then I used to sit in front of my laptop and spend half a day recording myself, trying not to stuff up the script and to get it perfectly right. This tool called Hey Gen means we can take all the articles, we can chuck that into ChatGPT. It will write us a 60-second script in less than 8 seconds. We then upload it into this tool called Hey Gen. Hey Gen has learnt me, it has learnt my mannerisms, it has learnt my accent, and within 60 seconds we have a video of me doing this exact script. So something that used to take us nearly 2 weeks and cost $4,000 now costs us $300 a month in a subscription, and I can speak 55 different languages perfectly. So that is an example of just one thing. Pick one thing and figure out how AI can revolutionize it inside of your business. So that now brings us to lunch. I hope you guys have enjoyed the session so far. I feel like we've covered a lot of ground. We're all around to ask any questions about anything, AI, pricing, rebates, whatever it may be. So let's all tuck in and see you in 40 minutes.